Hey everyone, welcome to another KE Report webinar, also co-hosted here by Focus Communications. In this webinar, we are featuring Eloro Resources. My name is Corey Fleck. I will be your host throughout this webinar. I am going to let the team from Eloro run with the presentation, and at the very end, then interject in some questions. To bring everybody up to speed, Eloro is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol ELO and on the OTCQX under the symbol ELRRF. Now, I know Eloro is getting to be pretty well known in the resource sector due to their exploration success down in Bolivia. The stock really started to take off about midway through last year, and look, it's been followed up by a lot of great drill results. For all of you to send in your questions, please use the chat function within this webinar platform. I will be monitoring all those questions, and again, we'll be bringing those in at the end of the webinar. For Eloro Resources, we have the CEO, Tom Larson. We also have the VP of Exploration, Bill Peterson, as well as Oswaldo Arce. He should be joining us. However, he seems to be a little bit delayed logging in here. Guys, as I mentioned, I'm going to take a back seat here and let you go through the presentation. If you all could bring on your videos, as well as make sure you are not muted, and then we will get this presentation up and running. Again, everybody, please send in your questions, and if we can't get to all of them, we will be sure to follow up with a couple interviews here to answer all of your questions that you all have. So, Tom, Bill, in the meantime, please take us away.
Corey, I'll start this off. Hi, this is Tom Larson, CEO of Eloro Resources. Corey, thanks for having us on tonight. Bill and I have we're here to present Eloro to the audience. We'll start off with our corporate presentation, and then, as you mentioned, Corey, questions after that will be most welcome. Basically, we're, as you well know, I'm sure most of the audience is fully aware of Eloro Resources. I'll just do a quick brief on the structure and the corporation of the company. We're publicly traded, as Corey mentioned, on the TSX Venture ELO symbol and on OTCQX ELRRF. We have an option to acquire a 99% interest in a 9 square kilometer, highly prospective volcanic edifice called the Isca Isca property, hosting a major silver tin polymetallic porphyry epithermal complex. Its location 4,000 meters above sea level. We raised over 30 million Canadian first quarter 2021 through bought deals, prospectus offerings through Haywood Securities, Cantor Fitzgerald, Cormark Securities. Prices initially at $1.50, and subsequent financing, the 25 million was done at $3.75 with half a warrant at $5, along with an accelerator if the stock trades over $7. We're into a very aggressive exploration program. Currently, we've drilled in excess of 30,000 meters to date since September. I think Dr. Pearson will sort of talk about that a little bit in comparison to other South American drill programs, and how impressive this meterage is at this stage, considering we started a year ago, September. So 51,000 meters is the forecasted program in preparation for our National Instrument 43-101 mineral resource. When I say mineral resource, it wouldn't surprise me to see both inferred and some indicated in that report. First quarter again, 2022. Next, please. So here's our share cap. Really hasn't changed a lot. 61.84 million shares outstanding. The money's going into the ground. Again, 30,000 meters of drilling so far. So we're lots of cash. We're still 22 million in the bank. So we don't expect to be financing for some time. Fully diluted 74.76 million shares. Share price a couple of weeks ago was 384, but right now I think we're down at 350, 360. Market cap around the 250, 230 mark. Management directors, advisors basically have close to 30% of this company. Next. So again, I've always reiterated this point because it's the most important point as to why Elora was becoming more and more successful. It's really down to the technical team overseen by Dr. Bill Pearson with over 40 years experience. And his claim to fame was really the Jacobina, the extension of the Jacobina deposit, which he persistently stuck with, which is today one of Yamana's flagship operations. Bill brings a major group of high quality technical people, geologists and such from South America and from Canada. We have Dr. Osvaldo Arce, who is our general manager of our Bolivian subsidiary. Dr. Osvaldo Arce is with us today. He was the one that was very instrumental in allowing us to become involved in the Isca project. He being very close with the actual owner, private ownership, the Villegas family. And also we have Dr. Quinton Hennig, who was really, really instrumental in bringing in our first major institutional investor, the Crescat Group. Dr. Hennig is now a partner of the Crescat, technical advisor and partner of the Crescat Group. But Quinton has been most helpful, and we rely on his advice to this day. Myself and my team, along with Miles Nagamatsu, George Estepa, we've worked together for the last 20, 30 years. And we also have Chris Holden, former portfolio manager for two major investment funds, Resource Funds for Investors Group, who's our VP Corporate Development. Next. So we just came out with some news this morning. I think it's really starting to show. We're really starting to get a true handle on direction of where this deposit's going. We started out with radial drilling, but the technical team, Dr. Pearson, Dr. Osvaldo Arce, can mention that we're starting to really understand where to drill even more from the standpoint of definition drilling, more so now than radial drilling when we started off. But look you're getting 160.22 grams silver equivalent over world-class lengths of 194 meters. Now, I don't know, that's over, like in this case, we had an average of over 36 grams silver. I mean, basically over an ounce. Just put it into perspective. If this thing had 500 million tons and you're averaging 36 grams, that's an ounce. You're talking 400 million ounces of silver. I mean, you've got to understand the size potential. I'm not saying that's what we have, but we're certainly going after those numbers. The zinc content, very, very high. In this case, the tin was a little lower overall, but we had some really high kicks. For instance, 350 grams silver equivalent, 112 grams silver being over 4 ounces, over 30.6 meters. Again, 0.33 tin in that intersection, which it basically converts to 6-7 pounds of tin, today's price at close to $17-18 a pound, with tin now trading at around $36,000 a ton. These are big numbers if you consider what the costs of a 40,000 ton a day operation such as San Cristobal might be, and the margins that you can sort of figure out yourself. Next. So Bolivia itself, we've been here for over 2 years, working with, a year and a half at least, working through Dr. Osvaldo Arce's great reputation. The country has basically totally, there seems to be a real acceptance by the the regime in the government, the Mas Party of Bolivia. They're really very interested in attracting investment wherever it comes from, especially into the mining sector. Mining's accounted for over 36% of Bolivia's exports, 2.6 billion in 2019. So, they are really pushing for foreigners to come in and with their expertise and find deposits. Next. The other opportunities in Bolivia, I mean, just one point that I wanted to mention, just to show how progressive they are. They just basically got rid of VAT taxes on foreign mining equipment coming into the country. I mean, these are the types of initiatives that the Bolivian government are doing to entice foreign investment. They had major natural gas revenues over the last few years that have really aided in the infrastructure build and the telecommunication system throughout, especially southern Bolivia, where we're located. Also, the property owner of the Isca, it's a private family, 100% ownership. His name is Edwin Villegas, and he's been elected as VP director of the Tupiza Mining Chamber Department of Potosí. So we're very well ensconced into what we're doing, both from I believe a political standpoint and obviously from a mining potential standpoint. Next. I'm not going to give you a big lecture on tin. I think everyone's starting to realize that the dynamics of the tin market. I mean, it's a small market, 350,000 tons per annum. However, there's a forecast of a 10% deficit this year. China's 40% supply. Guess what's happening in China these days? They seem to be closing down somewhat from the standpoint of free trade that we're seeing. So that's, the tin market in the last 6 months, I mean, the price has moved from 22,000 a ton up to currently around $37,000 a ton. Major use for tin going forward, electronics, a lot of different aspects for tin usage. And I feel that this system that we're involved in, Isca, because of our technical team and what they're coming up with, this could be one of the biggest tin discoveries, at least in Bolivia, in quite some time. So it could have quite an effect in the overall tin market in the next 4 or 5 years. Something to consider. Next. Next. So just quickly, the definitive option agreement that was signed back with the Villegas family, January 6, 2020. We have it's fully permitted for exploration drilling, which we're doing. No fixed expenditure requirements, no royalties on the property. We've issued 250,000 common shares to date. We have another 250 to be issued, second anniversary date, January 6, 2022. Our option payment to take on a 99%, to acquire a 99% interest, is a 10 million US payment. The Villegas family have been doing such a good job because they have diversified holdings. One holding in particular is their construction business. They've been very helpful with us on the ground, with road access for drill pads, with cleaning up the adits for our underground drilling, working really hard, knowing the community really well, that know them. So we've decided we will be making shortly a $3 million US payment towards that 10 million US. Next. So just finishing off my little speech here, we have a few different companies, worldwide companies, that are within a 200-kilometer radius. Cerro Rico, the largest silver mine ever discovered back in the 16th century, over 2.5 billion ounces of silver have been taken from the Cerro Rico deposit, along with averaging 2.2% tin, which is typical equivalent to 4 pounds tin today. That's owned by the Comibol Group, but Cerro Rico is basically the namesake that really created worldwide recognition to our district. Silver Sands, New Pacific Metals have done a great job in discovering the Silver Sands deposit. The Comobol Andean Precious Metals Group, the former Kinross Buchan family, they just bought out the San Bartolome facility and mine. We have Silver Elephant with the Puakaya, and Sumitomo, the San Cristobal, one of the largest silver mines in the last 10 years. Byproduct, really, with zinc and lead. They do around 30,000 tons a day. So, our comparatives, especially on the cost side, are towards that type of operation. They are a major bulk tonnage operation, and that's where we're heading. And then finally, Pan American Silver, 40-50K away from us to the northwest, own the San Vicente producing mine. Next. And Dr. Pearson, if you'd like to take it on.
All right, yeah, thanks, Tom. Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us to hear this really quite amazing story. I've been in this business for 47 years. I've managed and run major programs in 18 countries. But the experience here in Iska, the results we've been getting and the scale of this system, as I'll show you, is really quite extraordinary. We always like to start off here. Tom mentioned Cerro Rico, quite an amazing deposit. God's gifts to the artisanal miners, still being mined today. A lot of people don't realize it has a lot of tin. This is the famous dome on the left at Cerro Rico. And on the right is Iska. And I'll show you, Iska has similarities in types of metal content, timing of mineralization, and unquestionably scale of system. Next. This is a map of the concession here, a satellite image. You can see the roads coming up here. Accessibility is very good. Average elevation about 4,000 meters, pretty typical of the Bolivian Andes. There are no communities or artisanal miners living on here. And our nearest community is Tupiza, 48 kilometers south. And that's where we have our main base. There's also a power line that runs about 25 kilometers south as well. So very, very good place to work. Our drillers have a big camp up here, about a kilometer from the campsite. Next slide. So here's a view in the top here. This originally was started out as a small Spanish colonial artisanal working here, just on the top of the hill. Edwin Villegas acquired the property. And he drove in a couple adits, the Wauwakaza adit and the Santa Barbara. Wauwakaza, where he did most of his work, he did about 300 meters or so of lateral drifting, did some mining on the high-grade veins, but overall wasn't that happy with success. And when Tom and I were looking for potential opportunities for Eloro, I told Tom, hey, we got to look at Bolivia. I've known Osvaldo for a number of years, one of the absolute top geologists in Bolivia. And we did a due diligence program on this property in 2019. I remember the first pictures that Osvaldo sent me of the underground, and my first reaction was, wow, this is hammered. And so eventually we were able to make a deal on this project, and we proceeded, and we started September 13th of last year to do the first drilling on this property from underground, which was really, really quite remarkable. And you might ask, well, how the heck did this thing sit around and nobody find it previously? And I'll explain why in a few slides. Also know where the Santa Barbara adit is. We got some spectacular results from channel sampling that added. And you can see the general terrain here. It's a nice place to work. Currently, we have two drill rigs, surface drill rigs operating, and one high-capacity underground drill that's in Santa Barbara at it. Our contractor, Leduc, is doing a tremendous job. When we have the three machines running, we typically can get up to 250, 300 meters a day. I get asked all the time, well, are you going to put a fourth drill in? At some point we may, but right now we got lots of drill productivity. Our main obstacle is getting assays back. We have a new lab that's arrived on the scene in Bolivia, AHK. That's an international group out of the UK. And we're using both them and ALS where we were originally. Next slide. So here's a map showing the geology of the core area in Iska that we're exploring. This is a major Silverton polymetallic porphyry epithermal complex in a classic collapsed resurgent caldera, which is about 15 million years ago. So you can see this ring structure there. There's the outline of the caldera. And you can see these breccia pipes around. Our first one we found was Wauwakasa, the small one up on the north side. We were quite excited about it. Not that it's in itself, it was that big, but we knew right away, hey, there's got to be more of these things because breccia pipes invariably occur in clusters. And while we took a break from drilling Wauwakasa, our big break was when we drilled to the southwest here. Hole 14 hit 180 meters of beautiful mineralized breccia in what we now call the Santa Barbara breccia pipe. And of course, we followed that up with hole 15, where we had our discovery intersection of 129 grams silver equivalent over 257 meters. And in fact, when we hit that first intersection in hole 14, that was in November last year, I said to Tom, we got to put out a press release. This is so significant. And I was talking to Osvaldo and I said, man, you better get our geologists out there and figure out what's going on. And they went out early in the morning, spent all day hiking around the hills and just came back and said, mucha breccia, mucha breccia, mucha breccia. It's quite remarkable. And since then, of course, we've drill tested these things. Most of the drilling, obviously, in Santa Barbara, but we also have some drilling in Central and Porco. A lot of results are still pending. But you can see the picture here where we have these three major breccia pipes. Santa Barbara, it's about 800 meters across by about 500, or a long strike, about 500 meters across. Central is about 7 by 4 to 5. And Porco's about 600 meters in diameter. These things are huge. They're all mineralized. The other thing that's very significant is you see this green here. This is dacitic domes. So during the late stage in these calderas, you've got these big dacitic domes intruding, and then these breccia pipes like Santa Barbara have cut through these dacite. So there is not only mineralization in the breccia pipes, it's also very, very extensive around the mineralized envelope. And you can also see this magnetic anomaly up in the northwest. I'll come back to that. Now, look at the scale here. North-south, 1.8 kilometers. East-west, 1.6. Our first pass drilling over this area has been about 1.4 by 2 kilometers. And we started off with a radial drilling pattern, and we've moved now to a more sectional one. But the scale of this system, as I'll keep coming back to, is absolutely enormous. And there's also 1 kilometer from the valley to the peak of Iska. So the vertical extent, essentially this is a massive volcanic edifice. And as I'll show you, it's one of the most remarkably preserved in Bolivia. Next slide. We followed a very rapid path to discovery here, which has been quite exciting. You know, with the first Wauwakaza, then Santa Barbara, our big hole in January. We put out a release several weeks ago about our big target zone, which to me is another really landmark press release because we've clearly outlined a major target, which is still a subset of this whole overall caldera, where, as Tom mentioned, we're aiming to outline our initial NI 43-101 compliant resource. And you can see this picture up in the top right here, this beautiful, lovely breccia. The matrix is sulfide and tourmaline. Next slide. So this is a little more detailed map of the Santa Barbara area in yellow. You can see central to the south here. The green is the day site. And you can see the the magnetic anomaly here going to the northwest. We've had a lot of spectacular drill results. One of the most remarkable was 129.65 grams silver equivalent over 300 meters. That's 3 football fields. We've got intersections with high tin. As Tom mentioned in the start, we just put out some tremendous results this morning. That 160 grams silver equivalent over 194 meters is the highest grade hole we've had. We had spectacular results out of the channel sampling in Santa Barbara at it, you know, with values up to 1,000 grams silver per ton over 56 meters. So grams equivalent, sorry. So you can see here that this is a very, very large mineralized area. And you can see we started out with a radial pattern, but we've since changed. And this is always what happens in drill programs. Your initial holes, you're trying to figure out what's going on. We're getting a much better sense of what's going on. You know, Dr. Arce has been doing some very good structural work with our team down here. And we realize there's a major northwest trend here. And you can see here we have holes 12 and 13 on the left side cutting through that magnetic anomaly. That's the first of a whole series of southwest holes that we're doing. I'm going to show you a section in the next slide just to give you a feeling for why this step out hole we did here is so significant. Go to the next slide. So this is a north-south section. It's actually looking east. You can see the index box here. It's going across Santa Barbara in the yellow and out across the magnetic anomaly. I've color-coded these intersections here. Purple is greater than 110 grams per ton silver equivalent. And remember, these are used, we're using the overall silver equivalent to give you just a comparative value. But typically when we look at most of the holes, you know, we have more or less equal value between silver, zinc, lead, and tin. We tend to get more tin when we go deeper, and as I'll show you, central is more a tin silver system. And as we have more drilling, I think we'll end up with some sort of a zoning model. But you can see here, you're looking at a thickness here that's about 600 meters. And you can see how widespread the strong mineralization is. There's awfully a lot of purple in here, but you see red down here, which is 90 to 110. 70 to 90 is orange, and and 50 to 70 is yellow. So you can see how well mineralized this is. And then you can see our step-out hole here. We obviously don't have assays, but we've mapped out the mineralized sections. And the style of mineralization here in the mag anomaly to the northwest, very similar to what we get over on the east side here in the mineralized envelope. So this was a really exciting development. Now you'll also see at the top of this section, you'll see there's no mineralization near surface. And the reason is it's intensely oxidized. Basically, everything's leached out. So if you go along this surface and take some samples, you get nothing. And that's why this thing has sat here for so long, is because, you know, everybody prospected here. And even if you went into the Wauwakaza workings and you were just looking at the veins, you probably wouldn't have been that impressed. But guys like Osvaldo and myself, we're system guys. We think, what is the system like? And that's what really attracted us to this. We weren't too concerned about a few high-grade veins. We like the massive alteration, and clearly our gut feeling, which is always one of the key tools in exploration, is the geologist's gut feeling, was right, although none of us were prepared for the massive size of this system. The other thing that you can see is you can see Wauwakaza in the middle where the adit sits. It's down in the mineralized zone. So when we started drilling from underground, we started out in the sulfide. So that was a huge advantage. In other words, we didn't spend a lot of money drilling 200-300 meter holes in the oxide, and we would have been very disappointed. So you know, in the mining business, you have to have a little bit of luck. So that was certainly a stroke of good luck. And to be able to start the first drilling on a property from underground was really quite remarkable. The other thing, of course, with the magnetic anomaly, that reflects widespread hydrothermal alteration and mineralization. We've confirmed it with drilling. We don't know the grades yet, but we know it's well mineralized from our visual examination. The reason that mag anomaly is there is because the hydrothermal alteration has destroyed the magnetite there. So you're not getting much of a magnetic signature. The other thing that's important to point out is you'll see how this mineralized zone goes around all the rock types. And I'll explain why in a little bit further in the presentation. Next slide. So just to look quickly at central next door here, in this map, put a lot of values on. It's very hard to do it in the previous one. One of our first holes in central DCN01, which was along the border between central to the south here and Santa Barbara in the yellow, intersected some very nice values, particularly high in silver and tin. Central seems to be, it's more of an intrusion breccia. It's a granodioritic breccia, but it's not explosive. And it formed much deeper, and it's been uplifted and juxtaposed against Santa Barbara, which is a higher level feature. This pink down here, this is granodiorite. That's part of the basement of the volcano. So that was an early stage. It's not intrusive. It was there as a basement. And the brownish around here is Ordovician sandstone, which is the basement. Again, look at the scale here, 1 kilometer across. And I think just go back to the previous slide for 1 second. Again here, 1,200 meters across. So right now we're exploring a target area that's 1,200 meters long, 500 meters wide, and 600 meters deep. You can do the math using an SG of 2.8, and you can see what a massive target this is. So even if we get 40 or 50% of this to come through, we're looking at potential of hundreds of millions of tons. Next slide. So in summary, then, we've got this wonderful polymetallic suite, very typical of the southern Bolivia Potosi type. Silver, tin, we've got some gold, zinc, lead, copper, indium, bismuth. Our four major metals are unquestionably silver, zinc, lead, and tin, but other things like gold, copper, indium, which occurs in sphalerite, which is zinc, these are also potential payables. So we have this massive porphyry epithermal system, and most of the best mineralization is in these amazing breccia pipes and these domes. But a key feature of this is we're looking at a lot of mineralization that's extensively remobilized and upgraded structurally during post-Andean tectonism. And as you know, the Andes is one of the great mountain belts of the world, tremendous tectonic pressures. And this has moved things around and concentrated stuff, which is to our benefit. So when we look at our more famous neighbors, Ischia certainly is comparable in terms of metal content, geological environment. But what sets it apart is these remarkable breccia pipes that are uniquely preserved at Ischia. And Osvaldo is the expert on Bolivian mineral deposits. He's written 2 very detailed, learned volumes on it. In fact, during the lockdown, he finished off his 2nd edition. And when we first hit Huahuacaza, the first thing he said to me, wow, I've never seen these anywhere else in Bolivia. This is a unique thing because of preservation. It's very likely there were the breccia pipes elsewhere, but they haven't been preserved. So we essentially have this amazing volcanic edifice that's 1.8 by 1.6 K, a kilometer vertically at least, and it's been completely preserved. So, you know, if you look at where we are, just over a year since we started drilling, I mean, we certainly shown we have the right metal assemblages, we have strong silver, tin, polymetallic mineralization, some excellent grade holes. This morning's hole was, in fact, the highest grade one we've had yet. And it's clear that we have tremendous scale and exploration potential. But I do like to emphasize to everyone, we're still at a remarkably early stage. Next slide. Now, this is Osvaldo's conceptual model here of southern Bolivia porphyry epithermal system. You can see the green part up here is the epithermal, and you have the pink down here is the porphyry system. As I'll show you in the next slide, the model, the geology of southern Bolivia is remarkably different. Forget about what you know about the rest of the Andes. I've learned this very quickly from Osvaldo. It's quite different. The crust is way thicker, about 80 kilometers versus 30 elsewhere. And the sequencing, the metallogenic history here is definitely different. But in a kind of a nutshell, you can see where Ischia is, particularly Santa Barbara. You know, we're sitting in this nice sweet spot where Cerro Rico and some of these other well-mineralized deposits are. But we also have different levels in Ischia. Huahuacaza is much higher, probably closer to San Cristobal, whereas Central is deeper down. It's much similar to Taroque, for example, is a tin deposit that's hosted in intrusion breccia. And you can see on the left side that scale, 0 to kilometers. So essentially in Ischia, we've got this whole thing practically, which is really quite remarkable. Next slide. So just to say a little bit about the origin, in Bolivia, it's well documented in the literature The tin is early. It's a very high temperature magmatic mineral that forms. And so we had a huge tin porphyry down here driving this whole formation of this amazing volcanic edifice. So your tin was stage one. And then in stage two, after the initial collapse of the caldera, we had the emplacement of these acidic domes, which are green here. They kind of look like mushroom sort of looking things. And then these domes are cut by these huge breccia pipes, Santa Barbara being the prime example. And down here, you have that tin porphyry driving the process. And in this second stage, you're getting silver, zinc, lead, and you're also dragging tin up into the system here. And then the third stage, you move things around. You have all these structures that are, when we look at the core, we see original breccia in this breccia pipe that's been re-brecciated and re-cemented with more sulfide. So you get this sort of almost net-like or Christmas tree type texture running through here. That's part of the reason why you're seeing mineralization in all these rock types. So today you end up following some glaciation. The central has clearly been uplifted. It formed at a deeper level. You have juxtaposed against Santa Barbara, which is a higher level feature. And somewhere down there, we know it's there, but there's a huge tin porphyry down here that was driving this whole thing. So next slide. Now, I always like to say in our presentation something about ESG. It's obviously on everyone's mind these days. It's something I've practiced for my entire career. It's really critical. You're working in other people's country, other people's community. You need to treat them with respect, and you need to support them. We've done a huge amount of work with the local community. We have an excellent ESG manager, Jimena, who's operating the slides here. She's Peruvian, knows South America extremely well, and she's very involved in this as well. We gave them a lot of support during COVID-19. We sponsor schools. We're doing a lot of construction and improving sanitation facilities. And we have a tremendous amount of local consultations to find out what sort of things do they need, are they interested in having done. Edwin is a huge part of that. He's very well respected, as obviously Osvaldo is. And we're very committed to our Bolivian and local workforce. Next slide. We have about 14 geologists, 20 support staff. Our team's 100% Bolivian, led by Osvaldo, who is in my opinion, the top geologist in Bolivia for sure, and a top geologist worldwide. We do a lot of training. We've hired a lot of recent graduates, put a lot of time and effort into enhancing computer systems. We use the latest technology, geophysics, XRF guns, all that sort of stuff that is marvelous these days and allows you to do more and more on site. We take advantage of facilities like Aurora for some metallurgical tests, and obviously lots of workers from local communities. Next slide. So just to summarize then, as Tom mentioned, we're focusing on outlining a maiden inaugural 43-101 compliant mineralized source in the Santa Barbara pipe and the surrounding mineralized envelope. And I don't want you to leave with the impression that that's only area we're going to focus on. That's not true. It's just we feel our job is to create value for shareholders. And the biggest leverage for this project is to move ahead and get a resource, establish that resource, and allows us to do a PEA but we still have a number of excellent targets in the surrounding area, which we will certainly get to at some point. We're very well financed. Tom's done a marvelous job keeping the capital structure tight, as he talked about. We don't have hundreds of millions of shares out. And we've got this huge target zone, 1,200 along strike, 500 meters wide, extending to a depth of 600 meters. This is not a conceptual target zone. This is a real target zone. We have drill holes through it. We are filling it in right now. And I'm very confident we will outline a substantive resource. We have preliminary met tests. We have petrographic studies. We have downhole IP. So we're throwing all the technology at this. And I've got a lot of people who worked with me many years who really know this. So we have a very, very high caliber, very efficient program. 3 drills on site, as I mentioned. We're at about 30,000 meters. So it's a very, very exciting time at Isca Isca for Oloro. You're going to see a lot more news coming out in the future. And keep in mind, how many projects do you know where every single drill hole reported has multiple reportable intersections? That's the first for my career, and I've worked all over the world for 47 years. It seems to be impossible to drill a blank hole here, even if we tried. So stay tuned. Really thank you for being on the webinar today. Happy to answer your questions, and it's going to be an exciting next 6 months for our company in Bolivia.
Now, guys, are we going to get Osvaldo in here to discuss that? I know that he is online right now.
Yes, I'm here. Thanks.
Good. Well, I would suggest, Osvaldo, if I think it'd be particularly good if you can make some general comments on just Bolivia in general, and talk about some of the new structural ideas that you're coming up that we're following up.
No. Yes, Bill.
Osvaldo, you can cut off your video. Sorry, we don't need that. It looks like it's dragging a little bit. It might keep your audio quality higher.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Bolivia is now facing, well, we have a new government since a year ago. He's Luis Arce Catacora, who's an economist. He's the same party as Evo Morales. And he's now working basically with reactivated to the economy of the country. So we are now, waiting for a new, I would say, new rules that are going to govern the next 4 more years. But he's looking after the economy, and he says recently that Bolivia is now having the pillar. One of the important pillars would be mining. The other one will be gas, and then the other one will be industry in general. So these are good. I think a good, good politics for us, and it's a very good, perspective we have from that message from the president. Recently, he was just inaugurating the big international fair in Santa Cruz, which is a really, outstanding city with lots of industry, and he was really happy, having this kind of industry and showing the world what's Bolivia doing, and we are really confident that we have in the next few years a really good help from the government. I think we'll have a good support. The mining minister is a person who comes from the industry. He was working in San Cristobal mine with Sumitomo for a few years. And I think he has a goodwill for all these new projects that are being developed in Bolivia. So that's what I would say in general.
And Osvaldo, Can you just comment very quickly on your new structural model?
Oh yes, the new structural model was done with the old. You mean in Izcaízca?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did. Uh, we classified the three types of faults and fractures. We put three orders, like a three classes in our classification. One was the larger than 1 meter. The other one was 50 centimeters to less than a meter, and then the other one smaller. So we defined this structural model that was interconnecting these first, second, and third classes of faults and fractures, and we saw a general northwest southeast structural corridor. And besides that, we have another one which is northeast, but so far is a kind of smaller. But the one I'm talking about is about 2.5 kilometers long by about 1 kilometer wide. So it includes the new northwest extension of Santa Barbara Brecha. We are drilling now with the 2 drill rigs, and we are now drilling a few holes that are longer than 800 meters, and with a really good intercepts. We don't have assays yet, but I would say that 50 or 60% of them are well mineralized. So I would say in general terms that we have this very large structural corridor that's controlling all this mineralization, conduits for them, and also for all this geological history that showed that during Miocene, from 25 to 15 million years, we had this overprinting with first stage with a tin and probably tungsten that we have also in the southern part, overlapped by epithermal, silver, zinc, and lead, plus other metals like a copper, indium, cadmium, that are just having telescoped. We have this kind of situation where we have high, low, and lower temperature minerals that we call telescoping. So the telescoping is one of the main characteristics of this type of deposit, but also it's a characteristic of the general deposits in the region, like Cerro Rico, Chorolque, Animas, Chocaya, Siete Suyos, Tatasi, etc., that they have these kind of features. But of course, as Bill made in his excellent presentation, Izcaízca had the biggest preservation, or the largest preservation in the deposit, with these silicified breccias that had this deposit basically intact from erosion.
All right, guys, let's take care of some of the questions then that have come in here, because there's been a number of questions. We're going to stick to the ones that really have been asked the most here. And I have to put it on you guys, but when do you anticipate this first resource coming out of the project, and what targets do you think that resource will encompass?
Well, I guess I can answer that. Yeah, as we've said, in our press release a few weeks ago, we're aiming for end of Q1 2022. I'm not putting a specific target on it, but certainly we're aiming for hundreds of millions of tons, and that's about as much as I'll say. But if you take my target zone I gave you and use an SG of 2.8, you can do the math and then figure out what percentage we might have. So that'll give you can do your own estimation on that. But obviously, my QP status prevents me from speculating on numbers.
Absolutely.
But stay tuned.
Okay. Everyone just wanted to know, approximately when that resource will be coming out. Let's also talk about some of the different parts of the system. Somebody asked, what parts of the system are expected or anticipated here to be the most silver heavy or silver dominant?
Well, let me have Osvaldo answer that, because certainly our feeling is that we probably have zoning in the deposit. We see more tin deeper down. Osvaldo, can you comment on the silver distribution?
Yes. Silver distribution has two special places where we have first in them, where Acasa and Santa Barbara are more epithermal. So they are located more in the upper part of the system. Then in central part, especially at the beginning, we have a silver tin. And then, of course, in the deeper part of central, we have just tin. So I would say that we have two important locations. One is in the upper part when you have the epithermal, where Acasa and Santa Barbara. And then at the beginning of central, we have a silver tin. That's the main distribution so far. It may change according to exploration. Probably we can find more epithermal events that we will again define their final location.
Okay, thank you. Now, kind of on the back of that, too, a note was made that it seems the CPB is more tin heavy than Porco or the Central. How about the new extension that's recently been found?
Well, we can't, I mean, right now we don't have any assays on that. So it's really hard to say. I mean, we have some data from the XRF guns, which is not quantitative, so we don't release it. But we certainly know there's some tin there, there's silver there, there's zinc and lead there. But as they say, assays are pending. Certainly, as Osvaldo has mentioned, central, there's quite a bit of silver in the upper part with tin, and then and even in Santa Barbara, as you get deeper, tin seems to be more dominant, which is as you would expect, because somewhere down there's a tin porphyry driving this whole thing. But I would anticipate, I mean, just on a visual basis, this extension, seems to be comparable style of mineralization to what we get on the envelope on the east side of Santa Barbara. So we'll probably see our four elements, major elements there.
Okay.
Silver, lead, zinc, and tin.
Okay. Now, in terms of that new lab that opened up in Bolivia, you guys mentioned too that you are still splitting some of the core in terms of if it goes to that lab or the other one that you had been using. Eventually, are you going to transition everything over to that new British-owned lab in Bolivia?
Well, actually, what we have done is we sort of drew a line in the sand in our drilling. So our new drilling is going to AHK. They've actually just recently installed a crusher installation, which they manage into Pisa, which is a wonderful advantage because we don't have to ship so many rocks everywhere. And we're obviously checking between the two labs to make sure we have a consistent database. But they've been terrific. They've been down to visit Osvaldo with the site several times. They realize there's a real opportunity in Bolivia, so we're delighted to have them. They run 40 accredited labs worldwide. They're a big operation. And so we'll see how it goes. We obviously continue to work to ALS because we want to get the backup, all the back log cleaned up. But going forward, if they continue to do a good job, we may just move over most of our assaying over there.
Okay, so that actually ties in nicely with the next question that asked about those assay backlogs and if the new British lab in Bolivia, if that'll speed things up. And how is the lab processing or moving through all of these assays that are backlogged for them?
Well, I think in the case of ALS, I mean, during the peak of COVID in Peru, there, your audience needs to understand there's two parts of this. Both ALS and now AHK run a prep lab in Oruro in Bolivia. So, and of course, it's a huge advantage to us not to have to ship rocks out of the country, which is a bureaucratic headache. So by prep lab, you know, the core is coming in, you crush it, you grind it, and then you pulverize it. And of course, you do splits along the way. And then you send a portion of the pulverized sample to the main lab, which is in Lima. So both ALS and AHK have their main lab facility in Lima. I think they're across the street from each other. But of course, it's much easier to transport pulps. You just, you know, air freight those things so you can move them around. The problem ALS had was during the COVID times, of course, hospitals required oxygen, so the government understandably commandeered oxygen argon supplies. So the lab was only getting a small part of its normal supplies. So you can't do ICP analysis, for example, without oxygen. So that really slowed things down. And, you know, as Waldo has been talking to them quite a bit lately, they're starting to slowly get caught up. We're hoping that things will speed up and will clear up a lot of the backlog. But, you know, it is unfortunately a worldwide issue because the level of activity is also, you know, very, very high. And we've looked at all sorts of options, but I think AHA coming on board, they're very keen. They've signed contracts in Bolivia with Sumitomo and Pan American, amongst others. So they're putting in a major investment to set up the infrastructure to process samples. So I'm really hopeful we'll get improved turnaround because it's really critical in a drill program. You can only go so far with visual. Yes, we check it with the XRF gun, but it's not quantitative. You don't want to be drilling blind without your assays. So, but this situation is definitely improving, and we still got a significant backlog, but it's starting to finally get reduced.
Okay. Yeah, you guys aren't alone in having that backlog, unfortunately. Another question that came in dealt big picture. With a polymetallic mine, there are a lot of different elements within that deposit. How difficult is it to extract each of the elements, let's say silver, lead, tin, all of those, and what other circuits do you need to have to facilitate this?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, there's no question that metallurgy is key here. You know, we've got some initial tests we ran in University of Oruro in Bolivia because they have a lot of experience, and I'm actually currently working with Richard Gowns, who's the chief metallurgist at Micon, to work out the next stage of testing. But you're certainly going to look at a multiple stage processing. Your zinc, which is mostly in sphalerite, is going to come out in flotation. Your lead, which is mostly in galena, is also going to be another flotation concentrate. And you can stuff up to 18% by weight silver in the galena structure. So you're going to get some silver out of there. We're certainly looking at front-end gravity. We know at least some of the tin is in there as cassiterite. That will come out as gravity. There's areas where we do get actually gold in this deposit. And, you know, we haven't really looked at where the some of the potential elements like bismuth or, well, indium, for example, will be in the saulorite. We could end up with a leaching circuit at the end. It certainly will be a multiple stage plant eventually, but I think the important thing to realize is that Bolivia has been successfully mining and processing this type of mineral deposit for a number of years. It's quite unusual for North Americans who are used to, gold plus silver, or maybe gold and copper, or lead, zinc, silver. Here you've got this whole smorgasbord of metals. But, certainly the indications are now, and based on the experience, it'll take a bit of work, but they can be separated out. But certainly it'll be a plant with multiple steps as it goes, as it goes through. So, I mean, you'll see more on that, as we have data available that we can release. We certainly will, because that's a question I get all the time, and we're certainly focused on nailing down a good initial metallurgical flow sheet, which of course is critical for that initial resource estimation.
Okay, thank you. A couple big picture questions before we leave here then for investors. Have any large miners or producers expressed any interest in Isca, understanding still that it is early on in the exploration and discovery stage here?
I can sort of answer that. I mean, listen, we've only been at this for a year from the standpoint of actually, moving forward on our drilling campaign and signing this definitive option agreement. We've been, fairly active on some, we just went through the Beaver Creek mining show conference, 33 virtual interview meetings. We're active with the London show, Mines and Money. And we're certainly talking, especially at the Beaver Creek, we talked to 2 or 3 large integrateds and seniors that were interested from a geological standpoint, from that level. From a commercial standpoint, look, until we get our 43-101 resource out, we also, we have another fellow in our network who's an advisor, Graham Spears. He runs a mining engineering outfit, well known in Lima, Peru, called Gemin SA. He was up on site over the last week and a half with Osvaldo, with his engineer, one of his many, assessing the potential economics of where we're going for a PEA. That's underway shortly. We're not jumping the gun on the PEA. Obviously, we need the inferred, but we know where this is going. And he's highly respected, has major customers, international clients at least. So, the word's getting out. It's still early days. And at this stage, the value, we are so undervalued. I look at the share price. I know the market's rough right now. We are so undervalued. The last thing we'd be doing right now is contemplating a deal at this stage.
Okay, that ties in perfectly to what is the plan to monetize when you get out this resource, this asset, let's say. What is the plan to monetize it?
Well, I'm hoping to see a really robust PEA. And, I'm looking to see, we believe that the scale is immense. Is this a 50,000 ton a day operation? We believe it could be. It's still early days. It's not, I don't think it takes that much, to, look at your optionality. When you're dealing with that type of CapEx number, probably $1 billion, in excess of $1 billion, you're obviously going to be, and especially with this type of discovery, I think the Bolivian government or part of the Bolivian government might have some sort of indirect participation, but probably small, but that's yet to be determined. And also, I think an international, coming in as a senior partner is probably, because of the immensity of this thing, is probably the way to go.
Okay. Guys, I really appreciate your time. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. I hope you garnered a lot from that presentation and all the different insights. Tom, Bill, Oswaldo, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to share this story. And we're definitely going to keep following along as more news comes out and more drill results are released, because that's really what is driving this story right now. Definitely has caught the attention of a lot of investors, and that's on the back of drilling success. So keep those drills turning and keep us all up to date. Tom, Bill, Oswaldo, thanks for your time, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.